Good morning, my friends. Happy Tuesday. Perfection. That's a good one. I am a recovering perfectionist. I confess. I have spent most of my life not doing stuff because it was never good enough. There you go. Before we delve deep into the mysteries of perfection, let's go through who we are. So I am Andrea Kuchin, and this is My Home Biz Tips, brought to you by PhD and Follow Up. My business partner, Robert, and I set up my PhD and Follow Up about nearly 11 years ago now to help business owners, because we realized that there are a lot of business owners out there who aren't making enough money because they don't have a very good marketing strategy and they needed help with their marketing, which basically for us meant their follow-up. And then that grew into other kinds of marketing, and that grew into other kinds of business admin, and that grew into other ways of making money, like books and courses and products potentially created or sourced that could create a revenue, and then ultimately investment kind of income generation. So we cover everything. And if you want to know more about all of that, go to phdandfollowup.com/Andrea Kuchin. You can email me, and I'd love you to email me with comments and ideas and suggestions, even if you disagree with everything I say, Andrea@phdinfollowup.com. And you can call or text me, and I really will answer the phone, on 858-252-1190. Now, if you're not already there, join our Facebook group. It's called PhD and Follow Up, More Loyal Customers and Referrals for Busy Business Owners. Now, we're all busy business owners, and it would be awfully nice to get more referrals rather than keeping looking for new business. So that's, as I said, that's where we started with PhD and Follow Up. So that's where we're going to continue. And today we're talking about the value of perfection. I started this value series, I think 2 years ago now, by accident. It was a complete fluke. I was at an event and somebody talked about value and creating value. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. And I then talked at some point in this live stream about value. And then the following week, I talked about something that people don't recognize very much as having a value, and talked about the value of that. And it's just grown from there. And everything that I've presented the value of has been something that I believe, because I've seen it, that people underestimate, right? That it's a good thing. Now, perfection is different, because it is not necessarily a good thing. I'm a creative. I'm artistic. I'm not an artist because I can't paint. And I had a lot of time struggling with that when I was younger, trying to figure out who I was and where I was going. I can't paint, therefore I'm not artistic. Wrong. Anyway, that's a different subject. I make things, I design things, I create things. I was involved in television for many years. I made television programs. I was a producer, educational television programs for people like Open University and an American channel called Knowledge TV that we launched throughout Europe, which unfortunately is no more. And plays, I managed some plays, produced and stage managed some plays, and helped people write books and help people create courses. And when I say books, I mean more business oriented books. But I've been around people who've been writing novels and painting. and designing clothing and sculptures, that kind of thing. And I noticed something always, especially when I was in an editing studio with an editor and a director, and we were working on editing our show, which often had a deadline. The benefit of a deadline is that you can't go beyond it or you're in trouble. So you have to finish at a certain point, whether it's ready or not. Ready being a euphemism in this case for perfect, and vice versa. And I always wondered, how do they know? How do these artists know when it's finished? How do they know when their piece of music is done, or their painting is done, or their sculpture is done, or whatever it is that they were making is done? That dress is just right. That necklace is just right. How do they know? Because I often didn't know, because I would do it and then I'd think, oh, actually, that would be so much better if I did it this way. And if I did it that way, it would be so much better. And I drove myself absolutely nuts because it had to be just perfect. Otherwise, it wasn't good enough. Well, considering there was never anything to compare it to, good enough, the enough part of good enough is kind of superfluous, because when an item is unique and there's nothing to compare it to, how can it be good enough or bad enough or enough of anything, right? It's either aesthetically pleasing, if it's aesthetic, or it's the right length, if it's a book or a TV program or whatever it is, or it isn't, right? And assuming you've got that bit right, how could it be anything other than perfect? Because it's done. The point is, we go back in and we revise and we look at it again, or even worse, we think we can't publish it, release it, print it, whatever it is, because it's not ready yet, because it's not quite finished, because it's not perfect. And that is usually untrue. So here are some things that you might like to consider if you find yourself in the position of thinking something's not ready yet, because it's not good enough yet, or it's not finished yet, or it's not perfect. Okay, the first thing to consider is that anything, and I've been thinking about this earlier on because I wanted to make sure that I was right. Anything you do in life, pretty much, I would say 98% of the things that you do in life that might turn out to have not been optimum afterwards can be changed, right? 98% of them. Yeah. You cut your hair and the style is horrible, have it recut, let it grow back, change the color, wear a hat. You can hide it. You write a book that's rubbish, write another one, or rewrite that one, change it, put a different cover on it, give it a different title, whatever. You make a movie that tanks, make another movie that doesn't tank. Things go up and down all the time, right? So if you're writing a book and you're not sure whether it's ready or not, send it out to a few people, have them read it. If they say, there's a gaping hole, this book doesn't finish, you know it needs a little bit more work. If you haven't got anyone to test it on, just stick it out there. Somebody will buy it, somebody will read it, and you'll get some feedback. And if you decide later on, oh, you know what, that needs an extra chapter, make it the second version or the updated version or reprint or something. People do it all the time, right? I remember when I was studying art, there was an absolutely fantastic textbook called by Gombrich. I can't remember exactly what it was called. I loved this book. And again, I went nuts because I had to buy a new one every year because it changed. It got updated. Obviously, the historical stuff didn't change. Art from the beginning of time up to the 1980s or 1970s or 1940s or 1990s or 2030s or whatever it is the same up to that point. But then people keep creating, right? And you get new types of art and new artists that are worth writing about. So they would update this book every year. You can do the same thing. If you're writing about marketing or business, it's changing all the time anyway. What was a brilliant idea last year isn't necessarily a brilliant idea this year. So you create the updated version of the book or the training course or the dress or the painting or whatever it was. Now, dresses and paintings probably don't really come into it because this is a business thing and we tend not to work with those kind of people because they have agents, right? Who work for them, who promote them, because it's understood that a creative person isn't necessarily a marketing person. But for small business owners, you have to be both. Now, that's where we come in. We can help you with your marketing, even if it's just a question of getting it all figured out and knowing what you're going to do. Because it hurts to be stuck doing stuff you don't like when there are things calling you that you love that can't get done because you're too busy stuck in the admin, right? So don't let admin hold you back, especially not the idea that your admin's got to be absolutely right and absolutely perfect, or you can't do your thing, whatever your thing is, because the world needs it. That's why you're here and you have to do it. You are obliged to do it. That's why you have this talent and this skill. So go on, go do it. Make it good. Don't worry about it being perfect. Make it good. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, the more perfect something is, the less reachable or attainable it is. So let me give you an example. If I teach painting and I am Leonardo da Vinci in 2023, say I'm the equivalent of Leonardo da Vinci in 2023, and I'm an awesome painter and everybody wants to study with me, how many people do you think can actually experience that? How many people can get to the level of perfection of actually being trained by me? A dozen? 100? There's a whole world of people out there, right? Now, the people I, Leonardo da Vinci, train, they're not perfect. They're only 90% perfect. They then go out and teach people. And the people they train will then be 80% perfect. And they'll go out and teach people. And those people will be 70% perfect. By perfect, I mean their skill level will be. Because we're always learning something. Even Leonardo da Vinci, as a master, was still experimenting and exploring other ways of doing things, new colors to create whatever it was. There was always some kind of exploration going on, some kind of further learning. So if you're so perfect, nobody will be able to reach you, or at least you'll very dramatically limit the number of people who can reach you. So there's not necessarily a value in making yourself absolutely perfect. Now, I would say when it comes to business, whatever it is you do has to be effective and efficient. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good enough. It has to be efficient and effective. So if you've written a book and you're trying to convey a message, that message has to get across. If you've created a training course and people get a certain result after they do your training course, that result has to be achievable. You can create another training course later on for the next step, once you've figured them out yourself, once you've even taken them yourself, right? You can figure them out and then you can teach them. And then you do the next steps and you figure those out and you teach them. It's a bit like school, really. You start in preschool. You can't imagine PhDs at this stage. All you can imagine is what you'll be doing tomorrow. And then you go to elementary school or primary school, depending on where you're listening to me. And that is then your next level. And your teachers, they're not university professors and PhDs. They're junior school teachers, right? They're not perfect teachers. They're junior school teachers. Please, no offense to junior school teachers. It's just they're not as highly educated or trained as a university professor is. Obviously, I'm not trying to offend or upset anybody here. I'm just stating the facts. It is obvious that a professor who teaches teachers knows more and has more experience than a teacher who teaches little kids, right? That's what I mean about the different levels. That's what I mean about you are good to teach whatever it is that you teach or do whatever it is that you do, because that's a step. And you go up the steps and eventually you will be better than you are today. But in the meantime, there will be a lot of people out there that you have helped who are now at your level. Meanwhile, you've gone up a level and then you can bring them up a level. You just need to be efficient and effective at doing what you do. That's all. You don't need to be perfect. Don't even try to be perfect, because in my experience, perfection is unattainable and it's not a worthy goal. Efficiency is a worthy goal. Effectiveness is a worthy goal. Achievement of some description is a worthy goal. Up statistics are worthy goals. In other words, a better number of whatever it is that you were doing than last week or even yesterday is a worthy goal, right? And figuring out the steps to get to that point, that's what we're here for. PhD and follow-up, to help you. My Home Biz Tips, to help you run your home business as effectively as possible. So today, I think probably for the first time, I have told you the value of something which actually has no value, just to point out that it doesn't have a value and therefore it's not worth chasing. When things do have a value, they are worth chasing. This one, not. So go for good enough. Go for good. Go for efficient. Go for effective. Go for a deadline. Give yourself a deadline. I'm going to write a blog post and I'm only going to let it take me a week to get done because it needs to be posted. And then I'm going to have a week to do the next one because I've got to post it. Because consistency when it comes to something like that is more important. And please don't point fingers at me, because I know I'm not that consistent myself. That's why we have communities and groups where we can help and support each other. Because this is going to shock you, I know, I'm not perfect. And that used to be a huge problem for me, but it isn't anymore. Not anymore. And you know what? That's a good thing, because now I can get on and do stuff. I can be efficient and effective now. but I'm never perfect. Well, if I am, occasionally, it's a sheer fluke. Sometimes things just go right straight out the door, and that happens. But it's okay for it just to be good. And that's a process. And if you need help with the process, reach out to me. You can call or text me on 858 252 1190. You can email me on andrea@phdinfollowup.com. andrea@phdinfollowup.com. This was The Value of Perfection. I am Andrea Kuchin, and I'm also looking forward to hearing what you thought about what I discussed today, whether you've got any ideas or any feedback or anything at all. And I also look forward to seeing you here again next week and talking about something else. If you've got any burning issues that you want some help with, let me know. I will see you here again next week. I look forward to that. Have a glorious week. Enjoy whatever it is you're doing and set a target to have something done by the end of the week, which has been hanging over your head because you haven't finished it yet, because you're not quite sure whether it's right or not. Just say to yourself, I'm going to get that done by Friday, and do it. And it'll be done on Friday, even if it isn't perfect. Okay? You'll find actually it feels pretty good, and things will get better as they go along. And you'll feel happier being somebody who gets stuff done rather than somebody who's perfect all the time. You'll see. It happened to me. And I'm not the only one either. I've seen it happen to others. So have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Take care.